The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well being.
Hello and welcome to this brand new edition of Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Our focus continues to be on the escalating Israel-Hamas war. Israeli forces today stormed al-Shifa, Gaza's largest hospital, which is now at the heart of the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli forces have been raiding al-Shifa, calling it a precise and targeted operation. According to some reports, tanks have entered the hospital courtyard and troops are searching buildings and interrogating people in the compound. Israel has claimed the al-Shifa hospital sits on top of a Hamas command and control center and that a lot of ammunition lies in the tunnels underneath the hospital. It's an allegation denied by both the hospital officials and Hamas. Hundreds of patients and staff remain inside al-Shifa even at this time. A doctor at al-Shifa said they were given 30 minutes warning before the Israeli operation began. Dr. Khalid Abu Samra said, "We were asked to stay clear of the windows and the balconies. We can hear the armored vehicles. They are very close to the entrance of the complex." The operation comes amid Israel's escalating ground offensive in Gaza aimed at destroying Hamas. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has claimed that Hamas has lost control in northern Gaza, including in Gaza City. Conditions at the al-Shifa hospital have deteriorated rapidly in recent days amid the intense fighting, with doctors warning of a catastrophic situation for the patients, staff and displaced Palestinian civilians who are still inside. At least 179 people, including scores of babies, have been buried in a mass grave in the al-Shifa compound. Some who are on the ground say the scene is horrifying. The smell of the dead people is unbearable. Most of the bodies are of women and children. Remember, hospitals are protected in times of war under international humanitarian law. But Israel says Hamas's continued military use of the Shifa hospital jeopardizes its protected status. The United States too has claimed that some newly declassified intelligence shows that Hamas and the Islamic Jihad are using hospitals, including al-Shifa, as a way to conceal and support their military operations and hold hostages. The Israeli Defense Forces say so far no hostages have been found inside al-Shifa. One of Israel's stated objectives in this war is to rescue the almost 250 hostages who are being held by Hamas. Palestinian Health Minister Dr. Mai Al-Kaila has said the Israeli army raid represents a new crime against humanity, medical staff and patients, and could have catastrophic consequences. Her health ministry is based in Ramallah in the West Bank and falls under the control of the Palestinian Authority and is separate from the Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza. A statement from Hamas has blamed both Israel and the United States, President Biden in particular, for the Israeli army raid at the hospital. The statement says, by supporting Israel's false narrative that Hamas has been using al-Shifa as a command and control base, the United States has given Israel a green light to commit more massacres against civilians. Doctors and journalists have described catastrophic conditions inside al-Shifa, including desperate efforts to keep premature babies alive and limited procedures taking place by candlelight or phone light. Reports say people inside the hospital are starving. There is no food or drinkable water. There's barely tap water available for an hour a day. Thousands of Palestinians are also believed to be sheltering in and around al-Shifa, seeking to escape Israel's air and ground offensive. The World Health Organization says it has lost touch with health personnel at al-Shifa hospital. The WHO chief, Tedros Ghebreyesus, has said reports of military incursion into al-Shifa hospital are deeply concerning. We've lost touch again with health personnel at the hospital. We're extremely worried for their and their patients' safety. Israel declared war on Hamas and launched a complete siege of the enclave following Hamas's terror attacks in Israel on the 7th of October that left 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, dead. Almost 250 people were also taken hostage. Since then, the Israeli counter-offensive has killed at least 11,200 Palestinians, including over 4,600 children and 3,100 women, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. And remember, this data is at least 3 days old. No new figures have been put out. Now, as the Palestinian death toll rises with every passing day, with more and more women, children and babies losing their lives, there is growing outrage around the world. Heartbreaking images of newborns at al-shifa laid side by side to keep them warm after incubators stopped working due to power cuts have drawn the world's attention to the humanitarian crisis unfolding there. But Israel continues to rebuff all calls for a ceasefire. The outrage is not only in the Arab world, but increasingly being witnessed even in Western countries, most of which had come out in support of Israel just a few weeks ago. French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly called for a ceasefire. President Biden has said hospitals in Gaza must be protected. And now a war of words has erupted between Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trudeau has said, and I quote, "I urge the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint. The world is watching on television and on social media. We are hearing the testimonies of doctors, family members, survivors, and children who've lost their parents. The world is witnessing this killing of women, of children, of babies. This has to stop." That's what Justin Trudeau has said. In a sharp response to Trudeau's remarks, Netanyahu said, "It is Hamas and not Israel that should be held accountable." Referring to the 7th October terror attacks that left 1,200 Israelis dead, Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "It is not Israel that is deliberately targeting civilians, but Hamas, which beheaded, burnt and massacred civilians in the worst horrors perpetrated on Jews since the Holocaust. While Israel is doing everything to keep civilians out of harm's way, Hamas is doing everything to keep them in harm's way." Arguing that Israel provides civilians in Gaza humanitarian corridors and safe zones while Hamas prevents them from leaving at gunpoint, Netanyahu said, "It is Hamas, not Israel, that should be held accountable for committing a double war crime, targeting civilians while hiding behind civilians. The forces of civilization must back Israel in defeating Hamas barbarism." That is what Netanyahu said.
And I want to say something about hospitals that, number one, we want hospitals to be protected. We don't want to see any civilians, and certainly not babies in incubators or other vulnerable populations caught in a crossfire. We want Hamas to stop using hospitals as a command post. That would be the easiest way to solve this problem, if they would stop using the civilians that are in hospitals as humanitarian shields. But then I would also say that we want there to be safe evacuation for patients at hospitals so they can get out of harm's way. We would support an independent third party or respected third party to conduct those evacuations. We know the government of Israel would support such a step as well. They have said that they would support such a step. The question is, will Hamas allow patients to be evacuated from hospitals, or will they continue to use them as human shields? We think an appropriate step would be to support those evacuations so babies and other vulnerable populations are not in harm's way. The Secretary has made very clear that we condemn extremist violence and harassment against Palestinians. He had a very direct conversation with the Prime Minister about it. What he said to the Prime Minister and other members of the Israeli War Cabinet is that the extremist violence against settlers is unacceptable, that we think the government needs to do more to rein it in, and they need to do more to hold people accountable, and we will be watching to see what steps they take.
The IDF is conducting a ground operation in Gaza to defeat Hamas and rescue our hostages. Israel is at war with Hamas, not with the civilians in Gaza. In recent weeks, the IDF has publicly warned time and again that Hamas's continued military use of Shifa Hospital jeopardizes its protected status under the international law. Based on intelligence information and an operational necessity, IDF forces are carrying out a precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area in the Shifa Hospital.
Hamas must not, should not use a place like a hospital as a shield for their presence. That is as strong a statement under humanitarian law as is the statement that the hospital should not become a place of a war zone of danger. We find these two issues equally important and equally understandable for both sides. Our concern on the humanitarian side is for the welfare of the patients of that hospital, which is, of course, in great peril at the moment. We have no fuel to run it. The babies have no incubators, newly born. Some are dead already. We can't move them out. It's too dangerous. Our concern is for the patients of a hospital that doesn't function. I understand the Israelis' concern for trying to find the leadership of Hamas. That's not our problem. Our problem is protecting the people of Gaza from what's been visited upon them.
People involved every single day. I believe it's going to happen, but I don't want to get into detail.
What's your message for the families?
Hang in there, we're coming.
Will you sign the CR?
Mr. President, there's a report
What do you like about it?
stating that Israel and Hamas are close to a deal for the release of 70 of the hostages. Is there anything you can add to that?
No.
I want to quickly read out for him and our viewers the statement that has been made just a few minutes ago by the World Health Organization chief, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. Here is what he has said. For the past 3 days, WHO has not received updates on the number of deaths or injuries in Gaza, which makes it harder for us to evaluate the functioning of the health system. What we know is that only 1/4 of Gaza's hospitals are still functioning. 26 out of 36 hospitals are now closed, either due to damage, attacks, or because they have run out of fuel. Patients, healthcare workers, and ambulances are not able to enter or exit some hospitals. Prior to the conflict, there were around 3,500 hospital beds across Gaza. Today, there are an estimated 1,400. There are many more patients than beds. Doctors and nurses are having to make impossible decisions on who lives and who dies. Significantly, he goes on to say Israel's military incursion into al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City is totally unacceptable. Hospitals are not battlegrounds. We are extremely worried for the safety of staff and patients. Protecting them is paramount. The WHO has lost contact with health workers at al-Shifa. But one thing is clear, under international humanitarian law, health facilities, health workers, ambulances and patients must be safeguarded and protected against all acts of war.